Hiya. Right, so good morning. If I didn't see you earlier, um, I'm hoping the internet will play along nicely, although in my early morning session the wind was playing havoc with it, so fingers crossed we have an uninterrupted session, half an hour together. So as promised, today we're actually going to focus on the piriformis, the gluteals, the lower back, the quadratus lumborum, run them to the lower back, the relationship between all of those and how we can improve it, or I think understanding more about how it all works allows us or gives us the tools to help ourselves a lot of the time. So I have two tennis balls. If you have two balls of reasonably this size-ish, it could be lacrosse balls, it could be those little spiky myofascia balls, it could be your dog's balls. These are not the hardest balls in the world because I'm not a big fan of brutalizing myself, because I'm a big wuss. So I tend to opt for a slightly gentler option, but then I also do have the physio peanut, which I use on my back, which is then a much more different texture. But so into my butt I'm a little bit more gentle. So I'm going to just, while we talk, if you have these, use them, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit while we prepare and people just get set up, and then I'll get moving. If you don't have, that's absolutely okay. You can always do it at a later stage. So people just aren't really sure what to do with these things. So I'm going to put it right under the middle of my bum on either side and just gently lower the pelvis down onto it. And the important thing is kind of letting the ball in, because initially the tissue may like stiffen up around the ball, and just try to let the pelvis feel right, nice and heavy. Now if you don't have balls, you absolutely could just take yourself down into the ground into neutral pelvis, because while I'm here I'm going to do a little bit of breathing as well. So you can still do the leg movements, absolutely. My feet are a little bit wider than my pelvis, so probably as wide as the outside of my hips. And I'm just going to start by gently rocking forward and back on that ball. You don't have to do a lot to feel something, and maybe it doesn't feel like much to you, but maybe somebody else on the screen is actually going, oh my gosh. So it's really just individually relevant to how things are at the moment. Then I'm going to settle in the middle, and I'm just going to gently rock my knees from side to side. I'm not going to scrunch my face because your fascia is one big organism, and so if you are scrunching the fascia on your face, you are scrunching the fascia, full stop. So just think happy thoughts. Let the ball in, smile rather than frown, smile through the tender spots, and just gently let the ball in. So you may find a spot that's really talking to you, or maybe not, maybe it feels all pretty okay. I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to lift the bum up, and I'm going to move the ball back about half an inch, and then half an inch out to the side. So I'm kind of making a V up into my towards my hips. Try and find it equal on either side, and again I'm just going to gently rock the knees from side to side. You may or may not find a tender spot. We're just moving stuff. So basically you have your layers of skin, your fascia, which I will talk more about in one of our little brain sessions, maybe one after the next one. And the fascia should slip and slide. I mean, it runs everywhere, and then it runs again between the muscle and the bone. It's everywhere. Your fascia is everywhere. And as it glides and it slides, when there's a disturbance like a trauma, like maybe you knock it, it might create a little pocket of space, which fills with lactic acid and then becomes a little bit painful, or with inflammation. It inflames because it's not gliding and sliding very well. Coming back to the middle, I'm just going to lift my hips up again, move the ball up half an inch, out half an inch. When I put myself down, I'm not even on it, it's just kind of to the side of my hip. But when I roll my knees over, I hit a spot. And that's what I'm sort of aiming for, going into that insertion of the glute med into the back of that hip socket. Maybe it's telling you something, maybe it's not. Just relax into it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of, with the pressure of the balls, starting to break down those little pockets and let everything glide and slide a little bit better. So wherever that, whatever that is coming from, wherever that tension is coming from that's causing you discomfort, whether it is from a banging or from just overwork, fatigue. Remember, you are exercising hard at the moment. We're going to lift those hips up, bring the ball down by a good inch, and then put your bum back down on it. So it's just on the outsides, but I am on it with the outside of my cheeks. And just again, into my little knee rocking. Not going to scrunch my face, because that's a scrunch in my fascia. A frown on my face is a frown on my fascia. So as I'm rocking, just consciously trying to let the ball in and let it do its magic. So this is something you can do and something you could do regularly, just to affect the tissue, to affect the nervous system in that area. I'm going to lift that up again, come back into the middle, and just roll my hips around a little bit. Maybe do a little circle patterns. I'm kind of back where I began. And you may just be doing this with your butt on the ground if you didn't have the balls today, and you're already mobilizing that pelvis, just getting a sense of the pelvis and the hips. Okay, so I'm going to come off the balls and just feel how that feels, and hopefully that's made a little difference. Something else I can do is I could put one ball down and I could rest my bum on it, sort of standing on the one foot, drop the knee of the one you're massaging, and with your hand you can really make lovely big circles. So that's if you had one ball and you want to play two, you can do that one, no problem. Okay, I might do both since I've done one now. And then understanding your breathing and how that impacts is how everything is put together. So I have spoken about it before. I'm going to try not to go into too much but basically when you breathe, your diaphragm is this dome that sits in the base of your ribs all the way around. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts downwards, pushing out, and when you breathe out, it relaxes up underneath your diaphragm. Your psoas muscle is attached at the front of your spine, so in the back of your body, but in the front of your spine. It's attached to that lower rib, to the diaphragm, to those vertebrae, and coming down through the notch in the pelvis and attaching into the inferior trochanter inside here. So that big thigh bone has two knobs, a big knob, greater trochanter, which is this bone here that sticks out, and a little one on the inside, inferior trochanter there. Okay, that's my psoas. He's a major bugger when it comes to hip flexion. Then we've got your iliacus muscle, which sits in the inside of this hip cup. And his attachment is the same as that psoas muscle. So he does act as a hip flexor, but he's also the muscle that pulls that leg and holds the femur in the middle of the socket. If he's not holding the femur in the middle of the socket, then this hip flexor, the TFL, tensor fasciae latae, comes through here from the hip bone. It's your hip pocket, side pocket muscle, and becomes part of your fascia. He has to get a whole lot more involved, all right? So it's all about creating that balance. And it starts with breathing properly. Okay, that is like, amen. That is the biggest thing. So I'm just going to come back to, honestly. So I wish I could share my conviction. Right, so hands to the sides and the back of those ribs, and just breathing wide and deep and right down into your pelvic bowl. You could be standing, you could be sitting on a chair. You could be doing however you like, but that spine is nice and tall. And as you breathe, feel the movement right down into your bum. So modern day life has us very compressed into these lower ribs. We do tend to squish into them an awful lot. So our breath tends to rise up an awful lot. So we just don't get this movement and expansion down here. So this becomes very tight. And take it from me, keep breathing, take it from me as somebody who made this mistake. I taught Pilates now 14 and a half years I've been teaching. At about 10 years, I realized I made a fatal error and I'd worked far too bloody hard. And my diaphragm had become almost spasmed from the tension in my transverse muscle. My pelvic floor in the back was too tight, and I've really had to work on letting go and breathing. And if you don't have that movement down into the belly, I encourage you fake it. Just as you inhale, let everything expand, and exhale, and then push it all back out and let it all contract. That sense of elasticity is the tensegrity. It's the quality of our muscle contraction, the blood flow, the optimal function. Okay, so if you have all this tightness here, optimally your brain's going to go, I can do better just going up here. I get more, like there's more happening up here, so I won't bother. But it's not the right way. Going into this one, I would love to come onto my feet. Yeah. I'm not going to hold on to anything because I don't have anything close by. I'm going to find where I can sort of squat, heels on the ground, reach those arms forward, and I'll just drop that bum back and feel that tail curling round. It creates quite a big stretch right across the lats and across the back. Now plug those fingertips in and breathe right down into your bum. And breathe all the air out. Try to find the front of your pelvic floor and pull that lower tummy in, softening those ribs down, relax the neck and the shoulders. And again, breathe into your back, like your back is a parachute you're inflating, right down to the tush, to the pelvic floor. And then breathing all the air out, squeezing like you need a wee, gently pulling that lower tummy in and up, and relaxing into those hips. If you don't have this, you could do it here if you don't have the availability in the legs. But that round back, and then grip lower down and hang. And inhale, right down into that bottom, and exhale. Pelvic floor in the front, I need a wee, or I need to stop mid-flow, pull that lower tummy and ribs down. I was so excited about 5 days ago. I actually managed to find the front of my pelvic floor, really find it. It was like an aha moment. I thought I'd had it, but I didn't. Again, I'm 14 and a half years into it, and I'm still discovering things. And then let's just drop those hands down. We're going to go to move our SI joints. So our SI joints, I can't even see because my camera's a little bit tilted low. All right. So my SI joints are there on either side of my sacrum. My sacro-iliac, those are my wing bone joints. So just on either side, you can even get your fingers to them. You'll feel two little knobs, right? And just outside from those knobs there's a little groove. That's the joint. And now we're going to just stretch one leg and stretch the other leg, swapping them. Just walk them out and feel that little movement in that joint in the lower back. So that joint is designed to move. It's there so that we can have this little rotation of this pelvis, that everything is flexible. And actually your pelvis does that when you're walking. It is not a fixed piece. There is a joint in the front and a joint at the back. And as we're mobilizing those joints, you're getting, hopefully, all sorts of lovely stretches into the back of those hips, into the glutes, into the hamstrings. Don't focus on the pain or the intensity. Focus on the release. Breathe. Mentally calm it down. Your limbic system has so much control over the cerebellum, rate, rhythm, force, and accuracy. Well, not control, but impact. Just let it go. Let the hips move. Soften those knees. Anchor the heels and roll up, pressing into the flat feet, lifting the arches and peeling it up vertebra by vertebra to come stack that spine up nice and tall. Okay, taking a breath in for me there. Just take preparation to roll down again, tucking the chin in, Relax the knees and the hips and fold yourself all the way down. So you're going to fold down, allowing all the front of you to just kind of fold into itself. Then the path of least resistance for your breath is down the back. That's what the brain is clocking. And now I want you to just stay there and lift the bottom up, not necessarily straightening the legs, but just lift the bottom upwards. Feel how that really actually isolates a little bit more of what's going on in the smile of your bum. And now try to keep the hips where they are as you anchor into the feet. Push the floor away. Concentrate on the back of your body as the heels are anchored and the arches are lifted. And as you roll up, notice all the firing up and down those legs as you peel yourself up vertebra by vertebra. Take a big widening breath into that rib cage. Breathe out and go to squeeze the air out because you are compressing. You are pushing everything down as you breathe out. And so you have to gently pull up from underneath. Otherwise, everything is going to fall out the bottom. And breathing into the back. And breathing out and rolling it back up again. Anchoring into those heels. And coming back up nice and tall. So we've spoken again before about over-facilitation and inhibition, not weak and tight muscles. And when we talk about the position of our contraction, we've got to be very careful that when we breathe out and we find our core, we don't do this. Can you see what just happened to my lower tummy? It stuck out. This is all fired up, but that's not there. When I breathe out, I need to breathe out from just above that pubic bone. The ribs are coming down, and this is scooping in and up. So it was an interesting thing. It was somebody who took a physiotherapist, and he's a Pilates lecturer, took a ultrasound machine to a Pilates convention and checked Pilates instructors' pelvic floors when they were contracting. And over 50% of them were bearing down when they thought they were pulling up. Because when you do this, it pushes everything down. And it is up to you to find this in and up. When you have a diastasis, when the muscles have split, pregnancy tummy, postpartum pregnancy tummy, or even for some gents, they've strained and there's a split and there's a ridge. Whenever they lift their head like this, this little ridge pops out. You can get that healed, but you've got to find this. So check yourself as you breathe out. Look in a mirror and go, let the ribs come down and notice, did the belly pop out at the bottom or did you pull it in and up? Okay, so I can be over facilitating this and weakening this and then over facilitating into here because this is not supporting this. Pelvic floor is not supporting, the transverse is trying to hold on to everything from the back, and it's just not a happening. So I don't even know if that made sense. I hope that made sense. Questions. If you want to post questions, I will absolutely answer them. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of AMN stuff now. If you have tight lower backs, which a lot of you said you did, feet underneath those sits bones, let those arms dangle, close your eyes, and just bounce those heels on the ground. Just a subtle little knock, 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 knock. Don't shock yourself to death. It's not a bang that's going to create a negative feeling. Just notice yourself popping up and down in space. Stop. We're going to tap on the head, tap on the shoulders, tap on the lower back, releasing that piezoelectrical charge, swiping across the lower back, across those SI joints from hip bone to hip bone, affecting our fascia. That's our contact point with our fascia. And going into a roll down, dropping the chin to the chest and just peeling it down vertebra by vertebra. Breathe to inflate the parachute on your back and breathe out to find the core. the pelvic floor, that in and up, that you're not allowing the belly to push out against those legs at all or create a ridge. Lift your bum up a little bit, anchor those feet and roll it up. Feel the backs of your legs firing up. So can you imagine you've been sitting working all day, whatever you've been doing in the garden with the kids, and you go out for a walk or a run without doing any warm-up or preparation. These have been fired up all day, kind of switched on. And now you get up and you go walking. These are firing like 90%. These are going, what are we doing? Yeah? So we got to get them fired up first before you go out walking and running. That's why the hip flexors are so bloody tired. So take one foot off the floor. Sorry, I get really passionate about these things. Don't sit in the hip. You're standing on that one leg, and now just take the heel off the ground if you can, and give me a little bounce in that knee, and feel the back of your leg start to wake up. Yeehaw! You could have your hands on something, it's not a big deal. I can just feel the back of my leg. Hiya, hello hamstring, hello back of the knee, that little popliteus muscle, back of the calves, and then I'll swap and I'll go to the other leg. Find the balance, make sure you're not sitting in it, bend the knee, lift the heel off the ground, bouncy, 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 fire up the back of the leg. It's that simple, it doesn't even have to take that long. But before you run out the door, fire up the backs of your legs, okay? And then coming out of it, shaking it out. Let's just come into a little squat with the knees bending but the back nice and straight. And we're going to take the sit bones back and take the sit bones forward. So take the sit bones back and take the sit bones forward. And guys, I don't want you to try. I don't want you to feel this lower back getting tense. Notice where you don't strain. Notice where it's easy. And then maybe notice that actually the movement got bigger because you weren't straining, you weren't trying. And we're going to take that into a little circle. Try not to move those knees. I'm just trying to hula hoop my hips around. Yep. Think about your pubic bone, drawing a little circle. And then I want you to just go the other way, of course. And get an idea for where your pubic bone is, where your coccyx ends. Wow, it's deep under your petunia. And then your two sit bones. And imagine, right, so my pelvic floor is a bucket, yes, 3 layers like that, one middle one and then the back one, but it's attached, pubic bone, coccyx, 2 sit bones. So if it's those attachments could just be level to the ground, yes, try and find where that diamond feels level to the ground. Love it. And now bend and stretch and keep it level to the ground. Keep that sense of the pelvic floor gently opening, widening as you squat, and come back up. And widening as you squat. And so shall we make it even more? Turn out those feet, take them a little wider, so you can really feel the fibers pull wide and come back. And again, inhale and exhale and inhale. And when I'm doing this, I'm talking about really deep inside. Feel that bit. And all this impacts on our lower back. So our QL muscles. I'm going to give us a little exercise that's going to try and isolate that QL muscle a little bit. All right. So we're going to turn out your right foot, turn parallel your left foot, reach the right hand down, and take your left arm up. Now, some of you might even have kettlebells lying around. I wouldn't do a very heavy one or weight, but you could take a weight or a bottle of water or something into this hand to make it a little bit harder, a little bit stronger. And I'm going to reach down with that right hand, pushing that left arm with the weight up into the air. Keep side on, and then just start to push the weight up. Pushing with that right foot, and then coming back down again. And again, pushing it up. I'm going to come all the way up this time. And coming back down. Keep your position facing me, and pushing that weight up, wherever it was you were facing. Can you feel how that foot is helping? There's a nice little engagement into the inside of that leg. Pushing the weight up. And hopefully you are feeling QL on that left side. So let's do the other side. We're going to turn out the left foot, parallel the right foot, left hand reaching down, right hand may or may not have a weight in it. Just find your nice, I've squared everything off. Okay, so I'm not here, but I've squared everything off. And I'm going to reach down. Oh, it's so much tighter on the side. And push it back up. Oh. But I'm not going to focus on how tight that felt. I'm just going to focus on my length of that arm up into the air. Because I know if I focus on the tightness, it's only going to get worse. Because your neurons will fire where your attention is. So my attention, for me, is the extension. I want to feel how I'm using that length and that upward force. It's one of my favorite little mantras. Downward force equals upward energy. So where's my downward force? Coming from that foot, and my upward energy, there's kind of a relationship from that foot up to that arm. Oh, my hips got squiff. And again, hand. And downward force, upward energy, pushing that arm or that weight up. One more time, leaning into it. Even though this felt a little tighter, it also feels a whole lot stronger, the QL on the side. So definitely over-facilitated. But then if you look at my body, if you look at my shoulders, you will see that I have quite a difference in the height of my shoulders because I have a scoliosis. So that is just my structure, and that's, I guess, why the over-tight, the spasm stuff really caused issues with my pain levels. Everything was being pulled in all different directions, and it was just too much. Listen to your body. So I'm going to do a little grating. So we're going to make loose knuckles, and we're going to put them. I'm hoping that out of some of this, you're finding some stuff that you can use over the lower back, and we're just going to wiggle. So my loose knuckles are just kind of grating across my back. Just again stimulating that skin up the lower back and moving the fascia, moving the skin over the fascia, opening up those little pockets. Come right down into your butt if it's nice. And up. Oops, I don't know what happened there, sorry. I think my phone thought I was talking to it. Okay, so after that lovely wiggling, hopefully that feels like it's loosened a lot of stuff off. So some of us also overstretch our hip flexors to death because we feel tightness in them. And maybe we don't need to be stretching the hip flexors, but maybe we need to be strengthening the bits that are then inhibited, that these have taken over from, and that you've got to figure out. Okay, so moving on. Let's go into our roll down. I want to go down to the floor. Take a deep breath in. Breathe out as we roll down, top to tail. Scooping up that tummy, folding into the body. Release the heels as you bend the knees and let yourself come down into a lovely little shell shape. Stretch those arms forward, plug the fingers in. Let's have another big breath. Right down into that bottom. And then just dropping the knees forward onto your all fours position, and we're going to come down onto your back. So if you lie down, so preparation, we're going to do some pelvic curls. And then an exercise I like because it strengthens and stretches the hip flexors, we'll throw on the end. So if I'm in my my lying position, feet in line with those sit bones, feet underneath the knees as best as I feel is comfortable. Big toes, baby toes, heels down. Pelvis is in neutral. Just stop there and just have a little squidge in those hip flexors. So there's another muscle that we should know about here, which is the sartorius muscle. He comes from the outside of the hip, comes across. He's the longest, slenderest muscle in your body, and attaches down on the inside of the knee to the lower leg bone. So to the shin bone. So if there is a misalignment at the knee, if we're rotating in, rotating out, dropping the arch, or rolling the ankle somehow, that could impact on that sartorius muscle, which will then pull the hip over. So he's also a hip flexor. When we do our pelvic curl, rolling those hips up, stand down into your feet, big ball, baby ball, heel. 95% of our proprioception is unconscious, subconscious. I want you to try and identify with that sartorius muscle. Just take your hands from the outside of your hips and start to stroke it across, and as you roll down, you're coming across towards the inside of the knee, fold the knees in, and then bring them back down and stroke back across that sartorius muscle, come back to the hip. Exhale, roll the pelvis up, start to stroke down, and roll it down, tracking that muscle to the inside of the knee. Fold it in, circle those hands around the outside, tuck those knees in. All right, I'm going to bring the feet back down onto the floor, and I'm going to do one more pelvic curl, just hands on the ground, shoulders back, upper arms back, rolling the pelvis back, just trying to sense all the musculature that's so, our thighs are just so hungry for oxygen because there's so many great big muscles there. Try not to over clench the glutes. Don't let them be over powerful. Notice if something is grabbing on. Are these overtaking? Are your lower tummy muscles able to engage? Are those SI joints moving? Let's bring the right leg into your chest. We're going to just hands underneath it as we stretch it up. Just give it a nice hamstring stretch. Flex the top foot. Point the top foot. Flex him. Point him. And then circle that ankle around a few times. I know you can't see my foot. I promise I'm doing it. And then run the other way, circling the ankle around. And then bend it one more time from where the thigh is. Try to extend that leg up, just adding a little bit more hamstring stretch. Bum on the ground. No frowning, smiling. And then bend that leg down. Other side, we're going to fold that leg in, hand behind it, and just stretch it up a few times. And bend it down. Leave the bum on the ground. And notice where, if there's this little somewhere in your body, where is it coming from? I have to say, sometimes I get it in the hip flexor on the other side. It's kind of like a little, ooh, what are we doing? And then stretching it up, and then flexing the foot, and pointing the foot, and keep going. So with the AMN stuff, with what I've learned and the research that I've done, my personal attitude is to kind of treat circling the ankle, kind of treat every muscle as a little being with a personality and emotions. And none of them like to feel left out. None of them like to feel favored or left out. They don't like to have too much pressure on them, performance anxiety. Bend the leg in, bum on the ground, and then from the thigh, extending it up. Notice if anything changed. You could see my shoulder was getting involved. Right, now I'm going to bring both legs in. My intention is to keep my feet over my pelvis. So if that means I can only lift my legs to there because my hamstrings are tight or my lower back is tight, then that's fine. If you would like to put a bolster or a pillow under your lower back and lift this up, you'll be able to be more comfortable. Up to you. If in an ideal world you can stretch those legs, feet over your pelvis, that would be great. And then just kind of feel, whichever position you're in, feel the weight of the legs into the hips. But you may want to soften your knees anyway. So if you flex that right foot and slowly lower it down, we are opening up this hip, stretching the hip flexor. Visualize that psoas muscle, front to the back of the spine, attached to that inferior trochanter. And there's the length. Now as I breathe out, I'm going to engage my core and let that leg slowly lift up. My ribs are sliding down, but I'm not necessarily pushing. But can you feel, I can feel the inferior trochanter. I can feel the attachment actually at the inside of my leg there. Left leg. So when you're lowering it down, flex the foot. You can visualize again, there is that psoas muscle and attaching to the inferior trochanter on that left leg. And relax for a moment. And then breathe out. Keep extending the leg, back, front, and find the strength. You'll find your bum is heavy on the ground and you're really isolating the hip flexor. And then going down again. So if you wanted to know whether your hip flexor was too tight, over-facilitated, or weak, inhibited, this is a really great way to check it out. As you breathe out, extending that leg, What part of that is giving you the greatest sort of information that says something needs to change? And lengthening that leg down, opening the hip, because that's what pain is. Pain is your body sending signals, noxious signals, up to your cerebellum, which is then forwarding it to your frontal lobe saying, not smooth, needs to change, not happy, something's got to happen. Then the brain sends back, have some information, because you're not listening. And we're going to bend those legs in. Let's just do a nice little circle. Use your arms to move your legs. And I'm doing spectacles. And just feel how that feels on your lower back. Just feel those SI joints move. Give permission for them to move. And then go around the other way. Remember, it will only move when your brain perceives stability. Only then will it give you added range of motion. Stability comes also from how you're feeling. So we're going to bring those knees together, and I don't know about anybody else, but I probably felt less stable this week emotionally than I have, with things kind of changing. We're not knowing where we're going. And keep reminding myself the only thing I have control over is right here. Take a deep breath in. Let's go into our roll. Just drop the chin into the chest. Let the legs gently push into the hands. Scoop into the tummy. And peel yourself back up. Okay. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to find my sort of deepest hollow. So where the lower back is touching, I can relax those shoulders, dip the elbows, but I've got a pretty good grip. Don't lower the feet too much, because that'll change. You can feel that. If you lower the feet and lift them, you can feel that changes the contraction slightly. Here I'm loading them more. And I want you to rock the tiniest rock, forward and back. Oops, forward and back and forward. Now try not to drive with the hip flexors. Think of the back of the legs pushing into the hands and then lifting your bum up a little bit as you rock back. Lifting your bottom up to your hands, and that's rocking you back. The ribs are tucked down. It's easy for us to round that upper back. It's just around the base of the ribs, and into the lower back we tend to be very stiff. That's it. One more time. And then lay it back down and fold those knees in. Turn the head from side to side, just taking a breath and letting the neck relax. Shoulders drop open and then come back center. So I'm going to move on to something a little bit more advanced, a little bit more abdominal. Let's go hands behind the head. Take a deep breath in. Scoop to your chest lift, supporting the weight of the head and the hands. Feel that hammock around the back of the shoulders hold you up. Single leg extension, extending one leg out, opening that hip. Feel the back of the leg almost pushing down, except that it's not touching the floor. And then swap. So I'm really opening that hip and pressing down with the back of the leg. Swap. And now while I'm doing that, I also want to bring this knee in, and swap. And extend that leg out and pull this one in, and swap. And all the while, breathing out, squeeze like you need a wee, firing up this lower tummy to avoid that little poofy lower belly bit. And again, so this is the kind of quality I really want to put into every single leg extension, no matter how fast or slow it is. I'm going to use the extending leg to turn me onto my side. Just let it push me over. And then come back. And let it push me over. And come back. And just kind of open the hip, feel the back of the body. And then come back. So I deliberately didn't go down the traditional route of figure four stretch and you know, the traditional piriformis stretches and clams and hip flexor stretches, because I think many of you have probably come across them, been told to do them, and so I wanted to bring something different and lower the head down and bring those feet back to the floor. So just take a moment to kind of walk the knees, one forward, one back. Feel that coming from the hip, lengthening. I've got neutral spine, my ribs are down. What would not be ribs down would be that. But here where my ribs are down, actually the back of my ribs are on the floor. And I've got this little walking going, just lengthening out the waist and feeling it pull the thigh bone into the hip socket as it kind of pulls the hip up. That's it. And 2 and 1. Bring it back center. We're going to lift the hips up, so roll the pelvis back, lift those hips up into a nice pelvic curl, and now we're going to pedal backwards. We're going to roll the right hip back, roll the left hip back, roll the right hip back, roll the left hip back. Feel that coming from the knee, actually from the feet. Feel that push and pull as we manage our body weight. Center of gravity is active. Don't let that little lower belly poof out. Tone that lower transverse, or what I like to think of as my Toblerones, because if I have a 6-pack of dairy milk chocolates, then I have 2 Toblerones at the bottom, and 2 more, and 1 more. Roll it down. Release it to neutral. We're going to come to a curl up, and just one final little stretch. Yeah, I've overshot a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to just bring one leg in front, other leg straight out to the side, and just gently ease myself forward. Both bums on the ground. Notice what's going on as you sit in this position. What is overwhelming you? What has garnered your attention, like shouting the loudest? And talk nicely to it. Breathe into it. Tell it it's okay. Keep both bums on the floor. And then go notice the other bits. And as you breathe, try and breathe out, squeezing like you need a wee, sliding those ribs down and the hands a little further forward. If the same bit grabbed your attention, talk to it again. And then drag those hands back. Swap. Whichever one was whichever one. And so here's a thought for you. We do it with this one. The closer the feet are, the more you're going to get inner thigh. The further the feet are, you're going to get outer thigh. Same thing's going to apply here. So if you want to stretch more lateral, you just take the foot a little further forward. You want more inner thigh, bring it a little closer. And just hold, just coming over the front. Keeping both bums on the ground. Hoi! My quadricep is working so hard on my straight leg to try and keep the leg down. And I'm just having a conversation with it, saying it's okay, let gravity do its bit. And just relax the thigh and the hip flexor and let the leg flop and breathe. Pelvic floor, belly button in and up. Maybe sliding those hands a little further forward. Oh, yep, I'm feeling all sorts of other things now, but still having to have a little conversation with my right leg. Breathing, trying to keep both buttocks on the floor, just noticing as my body goes through these subtle little changes. And dragging it back up. I'm going to come back here with my feet slightly apart, hands behind you. And now just roll the one knee in and out, and then the other knee, rolling it in and rolling it out. Don't force it. Just see what inward rotation is available. Kath, especially you, just take it easy, you and Jenny. And again, so any hip replacements, this is not always advised as a good idea. In fact, it's probably advised as a bad idea. But if you don't have that range at all, if you have no ability to have and control that range at all, then what happens when you slip and you fall and this accidentally happens in an impactful moment? So I'm a great believer in just gentle, see what's available. Try not to rock from one bum to the other. I'm not doing that. And last time. Good. And then just let's come back up. Stretch those legs over. And then lift up. Circle those arms around the back. Swing over onto your hands and knees. Going to go happy cat, angry cat. Deep breath in. Exhale, rounding it up into that angry cat. Try not to bum clench. Maybe wriggle the hips from side to side. Exhale, stick out that tail, ripple it back out. Bring the breastbone forward and up. So if I'm promoting the idea that breathing is at the root of all this tension and malfunction, then my breathing around the base of my ribs is going to be really impactful. I'm going to take the ribs around, guys. I'm going to push them out to the side, push them up at the back, push them out to the other side, out, and just roll them around. Think about the base of your ribs curling up and out. You really can't do this wrong, but if it feels weird, stop thinking and just let your body take over, because your body will know what to do. And then go around the other way. Oh, just moving those ribs in its full range. Even maybe noticing how it works through the shoulders and the hips, because you've got those two proximal joints, those two ball and socket joints, perched on top of the humerus and the femur bones. And then just rocking back and forward and rocking back and forward, inviting the hips forward, lengthening through the front of the body, and then sticking out your tushy as you rock back, and then lengthening forward. One more time, stick out that tushy. Roll the hands back, come up onto those knees, and just shake it out. And that is actually where I'm going to stop. So, feedback would be good to see what you guys thought of that. As I said, I tried to stay away from the traditional piriformis kind of stretches and hip flexor stretches and just give you something different. Thanks, Kath. So I will do the third installment on the brain as soon as possible. I've been a bit otherwise distracted, so I shall get to it, and we're getting to the juicy stuff, so that's really cool. Have a brilliant weekend, and may the sun shine.